Hey guys, it's Shane with Renew Solutions, your hardwood floor specialist. This week we're working on some hard time. We got a couple repairs and a couple tips and tricks that we use to finish these type of floors. Also go over a couple safety things. So one of the first tips to refinishing hard pine is the grit of sandpaper that you're going to use on your machines. And for hard pine, we're going to use something a little bit higher. We're going to start around a 50 grit. You don't want to be down around 40. That gets too low, it's too aggressive. It'll gum up the paper. The hard pine is real sappy. And the abrasives we use are the Bona abrasives. Bona Blue is still our go-to. So we'll start with a 50, go to an 80 and kind of buff up from there. You want to be a little bit quicker with the machine. Like I said, it gums up if you sit on top of it, and it heats it up, and it kind of gums up the paper, starts to waste a little bit. So you want to, like I say, start with a little bit higher grit and keep the machine moving. I'm going to show you right here. The Bona Blue abrasives that we use, 8-inch belts, go right on the drum. We load them, use them when we need them. Switch the grit, we'll run the 50, then the 80. All right, guys, so one of the things that we found out after doing the big machine, when the wall line still has that 4-inch band, is instead of doing all that with the 7-inch disc on that Super 7 edger, we'll take the rotary machine, which is the buffer, the Epic, with that 6-disc Hydrosand that I told you about, and we'll actually do the wall line before the edger. It'll actually reduce that down to about, I don't know, inch and a half. Kind of show you what I'm talking about and how that works. Take a peek. All right, so that wall line, like we had discussed, is about 4 inches, and you hit it with that Super 7 right there and be bent over for a pretty good amount of time. Pretty labor intensive, can be. You gotta take some breaks. But like I said, we'll go ahead and take this Hydrosand, and all these discs are Velcro. So it's easy, kind of a quick change. That makes things a little faster. Again, we're still using those Bona Blue abrasive discs, 5-inch for this Hydrosand. We're doing 60, and then we'll do an 80 pass as well, just to kind of fine it up. But if you look down the hall here, you can kind of see how it reduced the workload. You see all I have is like maybe an inch right there. Left around the trim, just because we use that buffer instead of just strictly using that edger. All right, guys, we're moving right along. We've buffed the wall line and left ourselves a lot less work with the edger. And the edger, we've explained, and gets that area where the big machine couldn't get. That's the next step. Kind of see how we get this little bit of wall line cleaned up with the edger and move right along. All right, we're in the middle of edging, and I just wanted to go over a couple of those tips and tricks when we're doing this hard pine. It's very sappy, and as I mentioned, you want to be kind of quick when you're doing the edging or the big machine, and kind of start with a little bit higher grit sandpaper. We're running 80 on these edges. I kind of want to show you, if you sit still and you're not quick enough and the grit's not fine enough, it'll gum up the paper, kind of start wasting material and then taking longer, and then you're really doing nothing once you get that sap on that paper. It's doing nothing but smearing. I kind of show you some of the paper, how that looks. Take a look. Obviously, you always want to drive your nails in. We hit that. But sitting still on the sappy pine, you'll see how it gums up that paper. That's useless. And that was too aggressive on grit. That's part of the reason. Sitting still and too aggressive. This is kind of the right 80 grit. Set still a little bit, got a little sappy. But what you want to look like is kind of like this right here after you're done. It's kind of smooth, there's really no grit. It's time for another piece. These are all Velcro, so they're quick, change. But you kind of see, if you're moving too slow over here, you know, these three kind of moving quick, getting it done. Like I say, 80 grit. And we're bowing abrasives again with the Bona Black. All right, we've made it to the final phase of the sanding process, the buffing. Buffing the floor out, one last pass with 80 grit before we lay down the urethane. All right, guys, final step. Let's get the urethane down.